Now, if you ask me, there are just certain smells in the world that make me think of summer. Strawberries, peaches, beach. Now, I am not at the beach and I don't have access to peaches, but what I do have access to is an abundant amount of strawberries. So today we're going to be making strawberry jam, which is these kiddos' favorite thing to have. Now, my kids love strawberry jam and they eat a ton of it every year. It is the first jam normally that we put up, and so we just did a walkthrough of the garden and realized that there are a lot more strawberries ripe than we thought there were. So we're just going to go ahead and pick a bunch and make our first batch of jam for the year. Oh, come here. And Lily loves strawberries. Usually. Now, if you've never had a homegrown strawberry, you are missing out. They taste nothing like the ones that you buy in the store, and they're super easy to grow. They're perennials, and so once you plant them, they just come back year after year.
Lily, did she want some strawberries?
So when it comes to strawberries, you have two different kind of plants you can buy. You have ever-bearing and then you have June-bearing, and they're pretty much what the name says. If you plant a June-bearing strawberry, you're going to get all of your berries within a couple-week time period in June-ish. For us here in Idaho, July. And then ever-bearing, they're going to give you fruit all summer long. The more you pick, the more you get. So you need about 2 quarts of strawberries, but before you start counting out your strawberries, you have to pull off the stems. And so we're going to go through this whole bowl here and pick off the little green stems.
Wait, do you have to pick out the things to get stuck inside of them?
Nope. Now you see so many people that just go and they just chop the top off this. Don't do that because that wastes so much of the strawberry. It's very easy just to grab the little green at the top and just pull it off. That's all you have to do. And so just picking the little green stuff off gives you a lot more strawberry to work with. Now, we planted our strawberries about 7-8 years ago, and strawberries, if you don't know, they are a perennial plant. Once you plant them, they give strawberries year after year, and they don't require a lot of upkeep. All right, now I'm gonna go ahead and let Finn continue pulling these little green stems off. And I'm gonna go and start washing these jars and then putting them into boiling water. Now, when you make jam, you don't have to have a pressure canner. All you have to have is just a pot that's big enough so it will cover your jars once you put your jars back in. But you do have to boil your jars to kill all the bacteria in them. So I'm gonna give them a good soapy wash and then put them in my pots back here and bring that up to a boil and let them boil when we finish getting everything ready.
Can I start mushing them?
Nope, we gotta get these done first.
What do you mush them with?
Well, you just kind of put them in your pan and start heating them up, and then we use a grinder, the soup pureer.
Why don't you just do this?
All right, so we got all those stems taken off these strawberries. I'm gonna go ahead and put this aside and then start getting our sugar measured out. I buy our sugar in bulk and then just put them in these food grade buckets here. That way when I need something, I have it on hand.
Oh, sugar. Can you do it?
Sure.
Listen, you way too much sugar.
Okay, and so one thing you need to remember when you are making jam, use a bigger pot than you think you're gonna need. We're gonna be putting all the strawberries in there and then all of the sugar, but you have to save room for this to start boiling just a little bit, and it's gonna start foaming up, and you don't want this to foam over the top. We're gonna go ahead and put the sugar to the side, and we're gonna pour our strawberries in here. You can cut these up if you want, but I just leave them whole because I use a soup pureer to grind all this up. So we're just gonna go ahead and dump them in here. Okay, so if you don't have a soup pureer, you can just use a potato masher and do it that way. This way is a lot easier. So when you're using that soup pureer like that, you can continue to puree that till you get it the thickness that you like. My kids don't like huge chunks of fruit in their jam, so I puree mine too. It's just tiny little pieces are pretty much all ground up. So there's really no thick chunks left in here. It's all pureed, which is how my kids like it. But you could leave chunks in here if you wanted chunks in your jam. So the next thing I'm going to add is citric acid. You can use lemon juice or citric acid, whichever you prefer. And then I buy this citric acid in bulk too. You can get this on Amazon. So we're going to add pectin to this. All right, let's go ahead and put this on the stove over here. So when this gets to a rolling boil is when you want to add your sugar in. Okay, so once you add your sugar in, you're going to bring it back to a boil. You have to be careful and don't burn this. You need to stir it pretty frequently. You have to bring this up to a boil slowly because if you turn it up too high, it's going to burn to the bottom. And then you can also add just a little small amount of butter, and that's going to help with the foaming when this starts boiling. So once you add your sugar, it's going to be really shiny like this, and it's going to start to thicken. All right, so it's getting ready to boil now. And once this starts, you're going to let this go for a full rolling boil for 1 minute. So I'm going to go ahead and set my timer here. Make sure when it's doing this really hard boil that you stir it the whole time. Okay, once your timer goes off, just turn it off, and now you're ready to put it into your sterilized jars. And so when you fill these jars up, you want to leave about 1/4 of an inch headspace at the top. That way it seals properly. Make sure you go around and then wipe off all of the top of your jars, because making strawberry jam is very messy and you're going to get it all over the ring. And if you put your lids straight on, then they're not going to seal very good. So just give them all a good wiping. And then you want to make sure that your lids have been sterilized, and then go ahead and just put those on. Okay, and then put your rings on. So once you have your lids on, you're going to go ahead and put these back into your pot of water back here. You're going to bring that up to a boil, and then once it starts boiling, you're going to set your timer for 10 minutes, and then it will be ready. So I did have 1 jar left that would not fit into the pot, and so I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to leave it here on the counter just to cool, and then I'm just going to put it in our refrigerator, and then we'll use it in the next couple weeks. Now, as I said before, when you are making jelly, you don't have to use a pressure canner. All you have to have is just a big enough pot that will go, so when you put your jars in there, the water will go over the top of the jars. I am using my pressure canner pot here, but I don't have the lid locked on. The lid's just sitting on top to help hold that heat in, and so I just use my pressure canner pots as my pots, but I'm not pressure canning with it. So I have this going. I'm just going to go ahead and let that water come up to a boil, and then I'll start my timer. Our jam's been in the water bath for 10 minutes. My timer just went off, so I'm going to go ahead and take that out and let it cool for a little while. Now you can already hear these popping. That just means that they're sealing, and that's what you want. If you let these cool for say a day and your lid has still popped up, it's not pushed down, that means it's not sealed, and you should just go ahead and take that jar and put it into your refrigerator and just go ahead and use it. Before you store anything for long term, you want to make sure that your lids have sealed. Now, making jam is great to do when you're a beginner because it doesn't take any special equipment, and it's also fairly quickly, and you really can't mess jam up. If the only way you could really mess jam up is by burning it. You know, if you make it and it doesn't come out as thick, well then you have syrup or ice cream topping. It's just really impossible to mess jams and jellies up unless you scorch it. So I always say when someone's really looking to getting into canning that jams and jellies are a great way to go. Now this is going to wrap it up for this week's video. If you're not subscribed to the channel, go ahead and do that. This is the very beginning of our harvest season, and as I go through the summer and I am preserving our food, I'm going to be showing you how to do it. Also, don't forget to head on over to Instagram and follow me over there at Life Like Lizzie. And with that, I'll see you on the next one.